guys, and welcome along to another episode of Telecast PH, the Telework PH Business Process Outsourcing Podcast, a podcast dedicated to breaking through the cultural barriers and changing the way we look at outsourcing to the Philippines. I'm BizDev Jeff, your host, and I'm the Business Development Manager for Telework PH. Thank you so much for joining, and as always, a special thank you to all who have been listening and following my content on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And if you haven't yet, and you want to find me on those platforms, all you got to do is search BizDev Jeff. Connect with me, and I'll show you how outsourcing some of the non-core aspects of your business, like customer support, back office operations, or even a personal virtual assistant, can open up a whole new world, and in return, you'll be helping our mission to make an impact on poverty here in the Philippines. Right, so on to today's guest. Now, I had originally wanted this episode to air on Halloween as my Halloween special, and you'll know why in a second. So I got together with today's guests, and we recorded the conversation on the 29th, but then here in the Philippines, and it's currently going on, we got hit with a super typhoon. So it kind of put me behind because I had to make some preparations and make sure that the house and everything else was all set. And of course, I had to take the time to reach out to all of our clients to let them know that there is the possibility of, disruptions or, lost connections or whatever. But fortunately, we haven't had any issues so far. So that's been really good. And the typhoon seems to be moving on its way out. So hopefully you can understand why this didn't get out on Halloween. But I don't want that or the weather to overshadow today's guests. I had the unique privilege to have a conversation with independent filmmakers and husband and wife, Adam, A.K.A. Indie Adam, and Kristen Steigert, who have brought us such films as Fang and The Horrific Evil Monsters, as well as a host of others. Now, I connected with Kristen a few years back on Facebook when I was looking through some filmmaker groups to see if I could find someone interested in turning one of my short stories into a short film. And now this was back when Adam and Kristin were releasing Fang, or were getting ready to release Fang, and I was so impressed with the content and the quality of film that they were putting out on Facebook. I started, following them and paying attention to their careers. So you may wonder, why would a podcast mainly geared toward business feature independent filmmakers? Well, of course, they still treat filmmaking as a business. And as a matter of fact, back in 2017, along with another partner, Christopher Burns Jr., they started a film company named 388 Studios. The link to that website is in the description of the podcast. Now, they have the same structure as any business. They take a creative idea, they produce that idea, then they take the product to market and face the same challenges along the way. Now, Adam and Kristin make large-scale B movies, slasher, horror type, sci-fi, and these films are, in my opinion, budding cult classics. I mean, they're really good. Now, if you're curious to what I mean by large-scale B movies, well, Adam and Kristin explain. Let's listen in. Hey, what's up, guys? So I have today with me Adam and Kristen Steigert, who are budding cult classic filmmakers. When I say budding cult classic, that means that you should really, really, really check out their films. They are just they're amazing if you like the slasher style films. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Adam, Kristin, how you doing today?
Doing good.
We're doing all right, my friend. Living in another day in America.
Thank you so much for being on here. Do you want to go ahead and jump right in and just give us a little background about yourselves? Anything that you want to talk about?
Well, I started into filmmaking as an extra, actually about 11 years ago, on a film that Adam was director of photography on. And it just kind of evolved from there, coming in, doing extra work. And then I started writing and eventually assistant directing.
Yeah, and I've been wanting to do film since I was in high school. And I actually started in high school directing film, but I wanted to act initially, and it just never worked out for me because I didn't have anybody behind the camera who I trusted. So what I ended up doing is I ended up deciding I would move from in front of the camera and move to the back of the camera, and I just found a passion for directing and telling stories from there on out. And like Kristen said, later on, I ended up meeting my future wife here.
So you guys met on the set, right?
Yes, yeah, we met on a zombie film set. Yes.
Is that one of the ones that you did? You were doing? That Kristen said that's the one that you were doing. I'm looking at
I was actually the director of photography. I didn't write it or direct it. I was just a camera guy helping a friend out, and she ended up coming out in this, we'll say, a skimpy little schoolgirl outfit. And I turned to my my production manager and I go, you know what? In not so many words, I said, one day I'm gonna spend time with that woman. Well, of course, it wasn't exactly like that, but this is the PG version, and you know. And then it took a little longer, took a marriage from her. And then, yeah, I finally got there.
I only wanted to be an extra in a zombie movie. I came out of it with a husband.
So how did you come across that? I mean, was it like an ad in the newspaper, or you just knew somebody that, said, hey, we need some zombies?
It was actually a friend of a friend. And I was at, I think it was a 4th of July party. And a friend of a friend said, hey, I have this friend and he's doing a zombie movie. You want to come out and be an extra? I'm like, yeah, I love zombies. I love zombie movies. I never wanted to be an actress. I'm not an actress. I make a little cameo appearance in each film that we do, but I by no means have much interest in being in front of the camera. I like being behind the camera. I like the writing. I like the pre-production aspect. So I like to put my face on the screen for just a quick little scene, but that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to be an extra in a zombie flick, and it just evolved from there.
So then you guys got together, and now did you begin making films prior to getting together, or was that a project that came out of the marriage or the relationship, I should say?
Yeah, I have been making films since I've been making films since 2008, solid every year. But sometimes 1 or 2 films, depending on if I'm producing a project or something. So I've been doing it for a while. Kristen kind of fortunately fell into it with me, and she seems to have taken a liking to it. So it seems to be good for the relationship, and it's something that keeps us both entertained in a sense. Well,
when you're date a filmmaker, they live, breathe, and eat film. So there's little time for anything else. So it encompasses every hour of every day. So if you're going to be a part of that life, you either need to be 100% in, or you need to not be a part of it at all. So, I mean, that's really there is no other option.
Yeah. And she says it's so true because, there are so many trials and tribulations that are contributed from filmmaking. I like to say before Kristen, and we can't say after Kristen yet, but I'd like to say throughout my whole time making film, like it's hard on the relationship. So unless you find somebody that is willing to dedicate their lives to allowing you to create, it's very hard to find people that can be stable in this relationship and have filmmaking. So what I'm trying to say is it seems like every relationship I ever had in some way ended from filmmaking. So let's just hope for the best here now that we're married.
So I'm looking here on your wiki page, on your Wikipedia page, which Kristen tells me that you had really nothing to do with. But so I'm looking here on your Wikipedia page, and it says, I count that you've directed 15 films.
Yeah, that sounds about right in one form or another. Yeah,
I think that's more than Tarantino. So,
well, these films are not easy to make. None of them are. They're never an easy film to make. And yes, I've made probably like 15 films, but you're talking, you're not even talking the producer elements of things and stuff, and little behind the scenes and Comic-Cons that I've done and presentations. So it literally is consuming. But yes, I've probably made somewhere in the neck of the woods of about 18 films altogether with producer credits.
So which one of these films is your favorite? Which one was like the most fun, do you think? that you really love to talk about?
Me personally, I enjoy talking about a film called Amos Alien Invasion, which is probably my, to date, most successful film that I've been able to produce and direct. But it was also my solo outing. And Kristen actually was supposed to be in it, to be honest with you, but she decided she was going to stiff me. And it didn't end up happening. So, but yeah, it's my favorite film. And in fact, there's a scene that's online from Amos Alien Invasion that is one of my favorite scenes. There's been a couple scenes throughout my history that have been able to almost compete with a scene from that film. But so far, I think it still stands as supreme. And if you ever get a chance, take a look at Amos, because it's a very unique film for an independent filmmaker to have been able to achieve.
What makes it unique?
The scale.
Okay.
One thing about my films, or our films in general, is the scale. I'm very meticulous about wanting to show epic scale films with a variety of things that you probably wouldn't see in independent films. Flipped over cars, car accidents,
shutting down city streets,
throwing hundreds of zombie extras on a city street. In fact, there was even a set that we had almost 1,000 people on that were zombie extras.
Dumping tens of gallons of blood in the middle of the city streets.
I mean, there's so many stories I could tell you. You know, there's scenes that we flipped over cars and we had to go to the middle of the woods to do it. And, you know, you don't see those stories that built into how did we get this there? How did we do this? I'm hoping over the next couple months that you'll see more as we release more behind the scenes from various projects, so you could see how we were able to achieve some things. But none of these films are easy. And each film, I always try to set my bar up another notch. So I want to make sure that whatever I impressed you on in the last film, I want to do that again, but then I want to take it up another notch. So a lot of my films you'll watch and you'll say, whoa, how did you do that in an independent level budget? And that's an example of how good our team is.
Yeah, that's something that I want to talk about a little bit later, is the budget and what you're putting out of pocket. I'm assuming most of these films are bootstrapped, that you're putting most of the production costs yourself.
It depends on the film. I enlist a good series of producers, and they always seem dedicated to the cause. The last film that I worked on with Chris here, The Horrific Gila Monsters, we mainly produced the entire project. There was some additional producers brought in, but I'm getting to a point where I think that I would like to start producing more on my own end, I think.
Yeah, as you know, as a company, as 388 Studios, we have a third partner, Christopher Burns Jr., and he does all of our distribution. So he's really good in that aspect, in getting the films out there, getting the distribution, putting it on multiple different platforms. You know, we each have our own little niche within the company that we shine at. And you know, I think self-production of the films is definitely a better way to go as far as the way we produce films, because with independent film, it's not a quick turnaround. You know, there's no guarantee of your money back. And especially now, you know, we're COVID times, you know, we're having difficulty figuring out how we're going to actually release a film. So, you know, when you have multiple producers on a project, you know, everybody's looking for a check, and, you know, it's not always that simple. You know, it's not a 1-year turnaround or a 2-year turnaround. So self-production within the company is something that we're seriously looking at, because it's a better option for us just to keep it within the company.
Well, that makes perfect sense. So, Kristen, I want to shoot that question over to you too. Which one of the films that you've worked on is your favorite?
That's a tough question, because I actually have, every single film has its own kind of special element and special place in my heart. You know, the original film that I started with, which is the film that, it's the second project that I worked on with Adam, because the first one, he was the director of photography, but his actual film, Final Night and Day, I think it had a special place because it was the first film. It was a massive undertaking. I think he was fairly new as a filmmaker as far as making features. And for and I'm going to call him a young kid. We're not going to say how much younger, but he was a young kid at the time, tackling a project of shutting down an entire city street, bringing 1,000 people together, bringing the community together to take on this project was just massive. I think when we did Fang, I think is my favorite out of all the films, because it was just more of a claustrophobic feeling movie. So I think the cast and crew really had an opportunity to get close during the entire film. So that one I would say would be my favorite out of all of them. We had the opportunity to do a lot of things that we wouldn't have normally done. We had rented an old Victorian farmhouse. I think it was a farmhouse. And we lived there, we shot there, we ate there. We didn't leave this house for 7 days. So I think it really contributed to the entire feel of the movie and the way that it is portrayed on the screen.
See, I don't know if you remember how you and I connected, Kristen, but I'll tell everybody the story. I'm a writer, and I've written some short stories that I think would make good short films. So I was looking through some Facebook groups, some filmmaking Facebook groups, and I came across a lot of stuff that was really just not good. But then I started watching some of your posts, and I believe this was at the time when you guys were doing Fang. It's been that long. I think Fang came out 2018.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, Fang just released on video on demand across the platforms streaming services. So, but it did actually premiere in 2018. But it just released in the States last month. No, not last. Yeah, it came out last October was the release, but the movie didn't come out where you could see it until last month on the streaming services.
Yeah, but we've been promoting since 2017, 2018,
Right,
since it's
right.
theatrical.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember a lot of those posts that you were putting up of, the pictures of the set and everything else. And it was really impressive. And I just remember I reached out to you, Kristen, and I think I gave you like this long message about, how I'm a writer and I have these show stories. And you were just like, you were really polite, but you were basically just like, not now. Okay. Because we are in the middle of doing this film and we can't think of anything else right now. So I just thought that was cool. So Adam,
yeah,
you say you've been wanting to make films since high school. What or who are your biggest influences?
Well, I always say George Romero is who inspired me to want to become a filmmaker. One of the highlights of my life was going through IMDb, silly enough, and seeing one of my names attached to his name and linked to his name on IMDb on an official platform. I've seen him speak. I actually have signed checks from him from Dawn of the Dead in our home. It's the highlight of our work room here, or our computer room, I should say. But as of late, somebody made this comparison to Steven Spielberg, and I think maybe I need to revisit that a little bit, because I think I was growing up on a lot of Steven Spielberg films. I think a lot of 90s kids were, because 90s kids saw Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, not Jurassic World, The Lost World, pardon me. They saw Jaws, Schindler's List. There was such a vast quantity of Steven Spielberg films, E.T., the list goes on. But needless to say, I think he does something very profound in his work, which is scale films. He makes big films.
Yeah.
Look at Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, that's the one I was just thinking. That's the one was just in my head.
So, Ready Player One, all those are huge, epic scale films that you would expect from a major blockbuster. And I said to myself, you know what? I want to be somebody that makes blockbusters that people go to the theater. And, maybe it isn't just about the art. Maybe it's about the experience, the immersiveness of being in that moment for an hour and a half watching a film. And that's one thing that I've really tried to strive on in every film and make better is let's make a bigger film on a smaller budget.
Somebody said to me one time, and I think I took offense to it initially, and then I thought about it and realized that it really was a compliment. Somebody told me that there's a difference between making films and making movies. A film is artistic exhibition. You're displaying everything that you can put out there, versus a movie is mindless entertainment with big explosions and excitement. So I would say, you know what? We make movies. And originally, I think I took offense to that because to me, it's saying, well, you're saying film is art and movies are not. They're mindless entertainment. But our whole goal making a movie is we want to entertain you.
Yeah.
What can we do to make you go, wow, to keep you in a seat for an hour and a half and have you be excited for what you're going to see? And I think that's what we bring to the table.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. And there's absolutely no shame whatsoever. I mean, I think that art is a process. You know, what you see, like the film, the book, whatever, that's the product of the process. That's the product of the art. You know, people have their opinions, screw them. You know, I write murder mysteries. You know, and even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, said that like murder mysteries was like the lowest form of writing. You know, so it's like, you know, I feel you when it comes to, like, you know, when I want somebody to pick up my book, I just want them to be entertained. I'm not trying to change their life. You know,
Mhm.
I have written some things that will change your life, you know, along those lines. Um, but so like for me, when I write, it really depends on what I'm writing, to where I draw my influence from. You know, sometimes it might be Henry Miller, sometimes it might be Jack Kerouac. You know, and if I'm
Oh, yeah.
writing, you know, mysteries, it'll be like Raymond Chandler. Do you find yourself in that same you know, mindset that, you know, when you're doing different films or even different scenes, that you're pulling influence from different directors?
Yes, yeah, very much so. And you know, another film that I need to give credit to for a lot of my work, or when I start doing drafts of scripts, is Friday the 13th Part 3.
Hmm.
Like, there's an opening segment. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but there's an opening segment. It's a long segment of basically this guy in um, this old dilapidated house. Well, it's not dilapidated, but it's just an old house, and it's like a chicken coop house. And it's basically about, you know, how Jason goes through them, and I love the writing of that scene so much that I ended up looking at the script for it, and I used that scene in so many different ways to get inspired to write other scenes almost in every film. I can think of 3 films off the top of my head that I wrote scenes after rereading how the structure of the writing of that piece was done. So yeah, I feel like inspiration comes from a variety of different things, but you know, I try to tap into what people really gravitate towards, you know, zombies or werewolves, something unique that you don't see in independent film, you know, not just the stereotypical serial killer. Well, I want to see a monster. And how can you show me a monster? What creative ways can you do that? And how can you create that blockbuster feel with a monster in it?
Right. You know, and I like that because, you know, there are so many, you know, independent films that just, you know, you see them and they're really kind of boring. Number one, I would almost say that your films, from what you describe, is borderline experimental.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. I can't tell you how many times those experiments have screwed up.
well, I mean, you can only do vampires so many ways, you know.
That's right.
And you know, even me, I've been dabbling in writing a book about a gargoyle, and it's completely different than any of the legends or anything else like that. And I was talking to my business partner about it, and you know, he's like, "Well, why don't you do you know, a vampire story?" And I was like, "Grown, you know."
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably millions of vampire stories left to be told, but I just you know, I just can't do it. I can't follow that path. So I feel you. Yeah, I mean, you know, getting in there and doing something different to make your mark.
Well,
Um,
you gotta think too, as an independent filmmaker, how are you gonna get noticed? What is gonna make you shine out over any other filmmaker? What makes your film stand out? What makes you as a director stand out? And if you look at the titles that I have created over the last couple of years, and Chris has come a part of too, um, each film has something very unique about it. I just finished well, we're in post-production, and it seems like it's been forever because of COVID, for the Horrific Evil Monsters. Now, that film features every type of monster element in the genre that you could have, from a Dr. Jekyll and Hyde character all the way to zombies. There's werewolves in them as well, and it goes on and on. But again, that's like you're saying to yourself as a viewer, how do you have all these characters in a film and make it make sense? How does it become entertaining? And that's half the fun of it. Let's bring the viewer in to see what those elements are.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. But this is coming from a guy that I'll sit down and watch Sharknado. I actually found I enjoyed watching Sharknado. I love shark movies. I just watched that. What was it? Deep Blue Sea 3, I think it was.
How was it?
It was okay. It was all right. There was some overacting, but it was pretty enjoyable. You should check it out.
I think I'm going to be honest with you, because I heard a lot of good things about it, and I'm a Deep Blue fan. I'm a Deep Blue Sea fan of the first one.
Oh, the first one's amazing.
I didn't see the second, so maybe just skip that and go right to third.
The one who really disappoints me with some of the films that he's done, and I could be wrong, is Quentin Tarantino, because I'm a huge Quentin. I'm a Pulp Fiction. I'm a '90s kid. That was huge. Pulp Fiction and Natural Born Killers came out at the same time, and it just seemed to like a lot of things changed. But then, taking Dusk Till Dawn 2, Dusk Till Dawn 3,
yeah.
I think that it really lost a lot. I mean, I think it would have been better to call them give it another title. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's just one man's opinion.
Well, I think you're entitled to it, and I also think that I think you are probably correct on it, because I could not get past. I like Dusk Till Dawn, the first one, of course. It's a classic.
Oh, classic. Yeah.
But the second and third one is just, whatever.
Well, I feel like his stories start to get lost because there's so many side stories he's telling within a story that you lose sight of his original plot.
Well, not only that, you know what else it is? It's now they're just trying to make money on whatever they can get.
Well, so, you hit the nail on the head with that one, Adam. And I'm going to tell you another one that just popped in my mind that I was totally disappointed in. I loved. One of my favorite movies in the world is Desperado. Robert Rodriguez. I mean, that I love. I could watch that movie every single day. But Once Upon a Time in Mexico was horrible. I mean, in my opinion, I just thought it was just. I couldn't get.
I didn't like the Inglourious Bastards. That one I thought was. I don't like when you mess with history. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen it, but spoiler alert: they kill Hitler at the end.
Yeah.
And I just can't get behind that, because you're screwing with history so much. You had me up until that point, and then as soon as that point hit and you changed history, it didn't work. Now, he did the same thing for Once Upon a Time in Mexico. You changed the history of that one too.
Yep, changed the whole ending. I don't know. I enjoyed those two films. I really like Brad Pitt. I'm a big Brad Pitt fan because I think the guy is so versatile. My favorite actors are Brad Pitt and Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks can play anything.
Yeah, he definitely can. You got to give Leonardo something too there, because he is really good too.
I just had the very same conversation with my other buddy Adam Ward, and he's a big. I'm not a huge Leo fan. It's like I like Leo in movies, but I don't seek out to watch his movies. Let's put it that way. Like The Departed was amazing. Wolf of Wall Street was okay. But I don't really seek out to see his films like I would, Tom Hanks, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, even Kiefer Sutherland. I'm a big Joel Schumacher, Kiefer Sutherland fan too. So let's talk a little bit more about, the type of films that you make. Why? Now, you had mentioned earlier, you said, I want to make the type of films that people are going to watch and enjoy, obviously. But why slasher films? Is that like a passion of you? I mean, you like slasher films?
Well, yes and no. Like if you look at the arsenal of stuff I've done, not all of them are slasher by any means, but there's a good chunk of them. You're absolutely correct. And I think slasher allows you to create an ambiance. And it also allows you to have the ability to to sell your film. cult horror films, like
Right.
those types of genre related films, if you're not sticking strictly to the formula per se, then you may not get noticed at all. No one wants to see a romantic comedy, but I would love to direct one day.
Mhm.
A lot of things, I see a lot of slashers. So slashers, one thing, you take the elements of slasher and then you morph them into whatever story you're trying to tell. Now, I have a couple of alien films I've done, or films that feature aliens. So I'm a big alien buff, and I didn't even realize it. And I will tell you that, again, making these unique characters, you got to make them somehow relatable to the audience.
Yeah. Indie horror sells. Your indie horror cult fans are going to be your diehard fans. I don't see romantic comedy film conventions,
No,
which are going to see
exactly,
horror
right.
conventions everywhere. Your sci-fi and your horror have your biggest audience, underground audience, and it's the cheapest to pull off your practical effects. We're not big on CGI. And I think Adam can talk to this. As far as practical effects, we'd rather go practical effects all the way. And it's a whole lot easier and cost effective and believable to work with buckets of blood than it is to work with other sort of effects in other genres that I think are going to be more expensive, harder to pull off. And then you get into the CGI and you're not looking as believable.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead.
Don't get us wrong. Our films are not cheap. But we're not a multi-million-dollar production each film.
You get more bang for your buck.
Right. So we stick to the things that we know the money has to go to. And one of them, of course, is craft services. You got to have craft services. But besides that, we stick to the formula pretty closely.
Well, I know that, with slasher films, because I'm into them. I mean, I don't like Chucky, but when you're talking Freddy, you're talking Jason, you're talking Michael Myers, Leprechaun. What was that Leprechaun movie? The Leprechaun. Those are the ones that I grew up with, and it does. And even when you get down to the B movies, like I believe Night of the Living Dead was a B movie.
Oh yeah.
When it came out.
Yeah.
And it's just it creates an entire culture almost around the film, to where they know the characters' names. They begin to you get the writing fandom. What isn't that called? Fandom stories and whatnot. And I really think that's the way to go. If I were to make films, I would probably stick with more of the macabre and the the mystery side. I don't have any interest whatsoever in romantic comedies. Unless it's Adam Sandler. I can watch Adam Sandler, but anybody else, I really just have no interest in whatsoever.
Well, we need to recommend you see P.S. I Love You then. You got to see it.
All right. I'll put it on the list.
Yes, I'm sure it'll be at the very bottom, but you know what? Just know that it's on that list.
So what, I was going to ask you, would you make any other genre? And you just said romantic comedy, but is there any that you will not do, like music videos, or, is there anything you just like are totally opposed to, barring pornography or whatever, but like any other type of genre that you really just turns you off?
I don't know.
I'm a pretty hardcore horror fan.
Mhm.
I would do slasher horror all the way, every film. My palette is pretty stuck in that. It feels like when we're writing, we could be writing a strictly horror. So when we started writing Horrific Evil Monsters, I think we were gearing up to have this be an epic horror film, and it ended up leaning more towards a horror comedy. I'm not a big fan of strictly comedy, because I feel that it's very one-dimensional. There's only so much story you can tell. There's only so much action you can tell before you start dabbling into being then an action film. So a strictly comedic feature, I don't think I'd be 100% interested in.
And it's hard to do a comedy. I've tried to do them before, and they're hard to do. My favorite type of comedy is like the Airplane style type of comedy. The I hate to say it, but the Scary Movie style of comedy. Let's make something funny, but stay serious all the while. And that's where the true comedy comes off. I mean, Leslie Nielsen, is that his name?
Yeah, yep.
He was a god at that, and he started off as a dramatic actor. That he did all these films. He did a couple blockbusters, and then he switched gears to this, the Naked Gun series, because he did a TV show pilot, and it just was off the charts, and then they canceled it. But then they made movies about it. So it's one of those things that I always look at. Like, I know he was somebody that was very inspiring to me for a film called The Grim Becoming that I would watch and read about to learn how he was able to act. So there's some actors out there that, and even in comedy, that have done horror, have done every genre, and then they find their niche. And he was one of those people that were very blessed to get into comedy because the world needed his laughter.
I think comedy is just a hard sell for a lot of people because everybody has their own idea of what's funny and what's comedic. And when you're in a theater, if you're making a comedy and you're set out for laughs, there were a couple scenes in Star that when we were editing them, we were laughing and laughing and laughing. And then you're waiting for that same laugh in the theater and you don't get it. And it's just a letdown. So I feel if we were to make a true comedy, I feel the laughing points that we found funny may not be what somebody else does. And it would just, parts would fall flat for me.
If I could just say, there's two things I love when the premiere happens. First off, my favorite thing about seeing a movie in a theater that is yours is watching the end credits. Because at the end credits, you've survived as the director, watching with the group of people. You've heard laughter, you heard the boos or whatever. You've had responses, visual responses, and you can gauge where the audience feels on various different topics inside your film. And the other thing is, I like to either sit real close to the screen so I can't see the reactions, or I like to sit behind everybody so I can see the reactions. And each one of them has a different experience that one as a director or an artist can see. Because all you do one day is write some words on a piece of paper, fast forward 2 years, and then your movie's in a theater and it's surrounding by all these people. And this is the moment. Did you make it or did you break it? Those are tough moments to swallow. Because there's been times, especially with me, and now, doing 18 plus films, that some of them have failed. Of course. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. But there's been some that have been very well received. And those are the ones that I look to for guidance. So those are the two things that I think is very important, is just to get those reactions from people when you see it together.
I like that. And I like the fact that you still, step up and own those films that you say are flops. Other people may not think so. When people ask me how many books have you written, I say 4. The truth is I've written 5, but the first one is it was a science fiction fantasy type thing that was just really not my bag, man. And it is horrible. It's horrible. I don't want anybody to read it, but it's there, and I leave it up there, on Amazon, on Kindle. So if somebody picks it up, they can see how well I've progressed. But
I won't say the film name, but I will say I often get interviewed, and when I do, interviewers bring up a certain film, and I have to grin and bear it because I hate talking about it. And I won't let anybody know what it is, but if you do enough research, you can find it probably, of what film I'm referring to. Because I do talk about it pretty regularly. And what I'm trying to say is there are films I try to escape, but then people want to know more about those films that I'm trying to escape from. So maybe they're not as floppy as I thought they were.
What direction do you see yourself going with this? I mean, I know you're going to continue to make the films, but I mean, where do you want to see this go?
Well,
be honest. I mean, so some people just want to stay on the independent level. I mean, are you really hoping to, hit the Sundance and make it big, or?
I think everybody has their own individual goals. Between the three of us within 388 Studios. I feel that my goal is to keep producing content. And I think Adam would agree, the more content you put out there, the more you can monetize that content and start receiving income off of that. So obviously, the more content you put out, the more people you're reaching to see your product. So, are we going to Sundance? Who knows? Maybe someday. Depends on the content we put out. But I think our whole goal is to just keep producing content to build a wider base of an audience. When we cast, a lot of local filmmakers cast locally, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. A lot of our talent is local, but we're starting to more gravitate towards out of town talent now. And the reason being isn't because we don't have great talent locally, it's because you can reach a wider audience when you're casting further out. So for the Horrific Evil Monsters, we had talent from LA, we have talent from Chicago, we have talent from St. Louis, and then obviously local talent as well. But those are just bigger audiences that you're hitting, because then they're going to promote in their hometowns, and they're going to go to festivals, and they're going to go to conventions and promote your product and promote the film and promote themselves. So you're reaching a wider audience that are going to see your product, which is going to allow us to continue to produce more content. So I think just getting the films out there to a wider audience makes you bigger within itself. So the more audience that we generate, obviously the more money is going to come in. It's going to allow us to produce bigger productions. How big is yet to be seen. I think our sets are pretty massive as they are. You know, I wanted to start dabbling in, and Adam and I have a project that we're starting up to do, you know, possibly some shorts, you know, getting something out there. Life is changing, and especially with COVID and theaters being closed, you know, people aren't seeing features all the time anymore. The normal, you know, I think you researched this, Adam. What is a normal attention span on you know, everybody's watching YouTube. People are watching what, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5-minute clips.
Yeah.
People aren't watching 2-hour epic movies.
If you don't have something that grabs an audience member, even if it's clickbait, if you don't have something that grabs them right away within the first 15 seconds, chances are that you're going to lose them and they're going to scroll.
Right. You have,
So
you have that small window to make an impact. Absolutely.
I would say it's about 15 to 30 seconds
to grab them.
Yeah. Like we did Fang, and Fang has a pretty an opening scene that is pretty graphic, where one of the characters is eating a body part. And it's within the first not even 15 seconds that you see a half-naked man covered in blood eating human remains and throwing up. And I mean, it's very grotesque, it's very graphic.
Shock value.
It's a shock value that often grabs people when they see that film to say, well, this is what you're in store for. Then you can tone it down a little bit because you already grabbed their attention with something shocking.
Yeah,
and
you have to evolve with what's out there.
Yeah.
You know, with the changing times, if you're not willing to evolve and adapt to it, you're going to be dead in the water. You know, we can't keep making 2-hour features if nobody's watching 2-hour features. If we can grab people's attention with shock value, we can grab them with shock value. I think we just watched, what is it, Bly Manor?
Yeah.
Bly Manor on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So we were, 6 episodes in, and we looked at each other and we're like, this is boring. What's happening? What's going on? We watched the entire season, but it wasn't great.
No.
You know, how many times are you going to shut it off, you know, 1 episode in and say, this is terrible, I don't want to watch anymore? We don't want to produce content that people are going to shut off 20 minutes in and say, I don't want to watch anymore.
The Bly Manor was highly, highly disappointing because the setup was so complex. I was expecting a lot. You know, it just, you know, the character development was amazing for like the first 3-4 episodes, but I was the same way. You get into number 6, 7, I was like, oh, good Lord.
That's all you have is character development.
Right.
Yeah, it was just one big character development. And I get it, but if you're trying to tell a little bit of a story that interests people, I mean, you got to give them what they're looking for. And they didn't give in my opinion, and I don't know how you guys feel, but they didn't give the audience what they're looking for till like episode 7. And I think there was only 9 episodes. So 8, 9, that's 3 episodes. You could have made the whole series just 3 episodes long, in my opinion.
I agree. I completely agree. And I actually have that complaint with a lot of that platform's originals. I'm not going to say the name because I don't know who's listening, but that, you know, that platform's originals are really the first 60 minutes are nothing. It's just absolutely, boys, just watching them walk around, grocery shop or something like that, and then all of a sudden a couple of things happen and the thing's over. I'm just like, you know, I'm really very choosy with my films. You know, I just watched The Highwaymen. That was a damn good film. I don't know if you've seen it. It's Woody Harrelson. I love Woody Harrelson.
No, and Woody Harrelson can't do anything wrong, so we should check that out.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his.
Have you seen? I just watched another one the other night. Now You See Me. He plays a magician.
The Magician, yes.
I
yes,
love that.
That was excellent.
Yeah, that was a good film. But moving on from that. Yeah, so we were talking about the direction you wanted to take this. Yeah, absolutely. And I see exactly what you're saying, because I mean, I'm not saying you don't make good films, but even people that make great films and spend all of that time and all of that energy to try to get it shown in Sundance and it goes nowhere. And it's really a big waste of time. But knowing where you are, identifying with that, knowing who your audience is, and then just reaching out, because you're going to get a better response when you're attracting people rather than trying to thrust and push it in front of people. I think, I'm reminded of Deep Water. I believe the movie was Deep Water.
Yeah.
About the couple that got stranded outside.
Yeah.
And that was another husband and wife duo, I believe, made that film. It took them like 3 years to make that film, and they got discovered. They got picked up by Lionsgate at the Sundance Film Festival. How often does that really happen?
Right.
And have they made anything since? I don't even know. So I don't think it really opened up a whole lot of doors for them. So I mean, there's really nothing wrong with staying on the smaller market, generating that income, and exercising your creativity.
Right.
The smaller market too allows you to do what you want to do, as opposed to mainstream doing what you're told to do.
Exactly. My first book, 13 Years of Dust, got published by a publisher, and I'll never do it again. All of these writers, they keep talking about, I want to get published. And I keep thinking, why? Self-publish. Just self-publish, because you have more freedom to change it. You have more freedom, more control. Plus, you get all the money.
It's the same way with filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
Self-distribution is the way to go, and people will fight you on saying, "Well, no, you should get a distribution deal." I've had distribution deals. I've sued distributors before. I am not a fan of distribution deals through third parties. They're mainly all out for themselves. I don't want to say they're corrupt, because I don't want it to feel like that every one of them is bad. But I just think that their sole job is to make money for themselves, not for you.
Mm-hmm.
You should be in control of your own books and your own income coming in.
But as you can contest, none of that's cheap to do. You got to have some start-off capital. If you don't have any start-off capital, then you cannot seek out the platforms that you're trying to get on to get more exposure. And the other thing is, and this is probably across the board, even for books, is you got to have some type of marketing strategy.
Yeah, oh yeah, you got it.
Because if you have zero marketing strategy, you're going to get zero watches or zero reads, whatever you want to consider it as.
Yeah, we call it Kindle's basement. You end up in Kindle's basement,
Yeah.
And you just it is really just a game, and you can only tweet so much. You can only make so many Facebook posts, but if you're not actually dumping some money into marketing, I mean, and that's where I'm sitting right now. I haven't really been doing. I did some marketing with my book, Price for Harmony, and I sold some copies, and it was a successful campaign, but I haven't been following up with it as much as I want to, because I've been going in other directions. But yeah, that was something that I did want to talk about a little bit later. But I have one more question before we get into the business side of things. I've seen the posts from the both of you, and I'm not a stalker, but I do see your posts. I remember the post when you guys bought your first refrigerator, believe it or not. Did you put that water bottle in there? I just remember those things. I don't know why.
I hope that makes the cut of this interview.
I'm going to leave it in. I don't edit a whole lot, just some of the things. At any rate, so I've seen both of you have made posts where, Adam, you guys were just recently were in Maine, or you had gone somewhere, and when I first contacted Kristen about doing the podcast, and then you had mentioned that you were writing again, and then I saw Kristen made a post as well about starting writing again. What's your favorite role out of all of it?
Like, what is I think directing is my favorite.
Directing out of all of it, huh?
Yeah. It's hard. It's not easy to direct a film. And to have, I would say I probably have at least 8 titles that are feature length. And, those are some of the projects are over 2 years in the making per film. And it's not easy. And they don't have small casts. So directing, you have to focus on all that. I think I'm going to give you an expectation that my wife here is going to say her favorite thing is writing, but we'll see what she says.
It is. It's writing. I've always loved to write, and I'm passionate about it. And I think it's something that I shine in that element. Now, when Adam and I write together, which is most often what we've been doing lately, we have a really great formula for writing where it's kind of like building a house. Adam will do the framework of a scene or a framework of the plot, and I'll go in and I'll add the details, the dialogue, things like that, and we'll bounce back and forth. When we write, you would not know who wrote what scene.
No.
Because it's seamless.
Yeah.
It's just that perfect together. My major character flaw is I don't like when my writing is changed. And I think Adam will attest to that if I write something, I will fight tooth and nail to keep it in there. And I don't have a whole lot of flexibility. I'm working on it.
She's not doing very well.
I'm working on it. But I like the writing aspect of it. I like the creativity of the writing. I like the words on the paper. Adam was saying his favorite moments during a premiere, seeing the credits, seeing the audience's reaction. Mine is seeing a character that I developed that was nothing. And all of a sudden they're speaking my dialogue, words that I put on a paper. To me, that's impressive.
Well, it's, and I don't mean to cut you off, but there's like we write an alien comes out of a closet or alien comes out of a doorway. And you're like, okay, well, we'll figure out what the alien looks like later on. We just know that he has to look like a humanoid type of alien. So then you start looking at the wardrobes, because that's another great thing is putting together a character. But not to get away from the thing, that's a whole different topic in itself. But yeah, like I said, it definitely is she definitely shines in writing. She's definitely the yin to the yang type of thing.
What's the biggest challenge on the set? I mean, you're there, the actors are there, everybody's there. What's your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge, although I try to spread myself everywhere, I'm just not everywhere at every time. So I always look for assistant directors that can help continue my vision when I'm not not with them on set, or if I have to be somewhere else and I can't be there. So my biggest challenge is, and personally, it's a personal struggle, is just to not be everywhere, to know everything so that my brain can slow down. Once you're in filmmaking mode, Chris can tell you better because she watches it from the outside. But once you're in filmmaking mode as a director, you shut down everything. Like when we do our shoots, we have blocked out time. So we have a week to shoot. During that week, I don't do any house bills. I don't do any type of personal anything. It's just strictly film. And that's all it is. We wake up, we go to sleep, we have arguments. We are not to take the arguments home with us. It's just, we have a week, we have to get this done. And then, like I said, Kristen can tell you how it feels looking outside in, but it's almost an obsession at times. So it's a lot to be a director. But it is also the hardest job in the field.
Yeah. So I would say my biggest challenge is I'm the one that has to be everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I'm the one that has to oversee craft services, makeup, wardrobe, cast. I'm the one that has to oversee making sure our cast gets to where they need to be, making sure our special effects guy has what he needs, making sure the food is going to be ready on time, making sure that people are ready for Adam when he needs them ready, making sure the scene is set up where it needs to go based off of the script. So in making sure that all of these people are coming to me as opposed to bothering Adam so he can stay in his zone to be able to direct the scene efficiently. So I think working together in that regard, he is tunnel vision, single focused. When we're on set, everybody else is joking around, laughing, having a good time. Adam is not. He's got a pen behind his ear, a script in his hand, figuring out where placement needs to be, where the lighting needs to be, how the scene is going to transform from it is on paper. And it's my job to make sure that everybody else is doing what they need to do so he can focus on the directing.
Okay, so on the converse, how about off the set, on the business side? What are your biggest challenges? I know you had mentioned, we talked about marketing. Do you, do you think that's your biggest challenge? Because I know that's a pain point for a lot of businesses across the board.
I would agree. I would say marketing. I mean, I'm sure there's other things that stand out, but I would say marketing is so important, because if you don't have marketing, you are dead in the water. So yeah, it's so vastly important. In fact, we're to a point now in my career and in Chris's, I would say with doing the movies, is I don't hire anybody that doesn't promote themselves anymore. We just don't do it. So if you're somebody that doesn't promote themselves or promote the project, in fact, in our contracts, there's even clauses now that state that you have to promote X amount and stuff. But promotion is so key. I will not work with somebody. They could be the best actor in the world, but I'll take the guy that promotes himself all the time and is less of an actor, in a sense, not less of an actor, but less of the caliber of somebody else that might have more experience, if they promoted themselves more than the person with the most experience.
And when you mean promote themselves, you mean like talk shows, social media?
Yes, promote their brand, continue to be there, out there, creating a name for themselves.
Right.
A lot of filmmakers. I did a whole film once that almost the entire cast and crew didn't even promote the film once. So that was a pivotal turning point for me as an artist.
Yeah, if you have a cast of 80 and a crew of 25 and you have one person promoting the film, yet everybody wants to get paid, right? Well, we can't get paid if people don't see the film. And if people don't see the film, it's a team effort. And why wouldn't you want to promote yourself? If you're acting as a career, you want people to see your films, ideally, right? So if they're not willing to promote it, if they're not willing to put themselves out there, and it's not even about promoting just our film. You're in our film. You have to promote our film. You want to promote yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Because promoting yourself is what's going to get you hired. I can't tell you how many actors we've cast, because I do the majority of our casting. How many actors do I cast because I've seen your social media presence? You've caught my eye over the other 4,000 friends that I may have on Facebook. You stood out to me. Why? Because you promoted yourself.
Right. Exactly. I mean, the brand promotion and everything else. You look back real quick at some of the actors that started in slasher films. John Travolta was in Carrie. Kevin Bacon was in
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th. Right. Johnny Depp was in Nightmare on Elm Street. You know what I mean? So it's like, this doing a film with you guys. And that could really catapult their career. So you would think that they would definitely want to get out there and say, hey, look at what I just did.
And I can tell you, I know. And I can tell you from experience, there's been quite a few actors that have done just that, have flourished and gone on to do bigger projects from starting with us. And, a lot of people forget where they come from. And that's just a shame.
It is a shame. All right. So before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
What's in the pipeline? What are you writing, Kristen? Tell me.
I am working on a series of shorts. Basically, they're micro shorts. Mm-hmm. We're aiming between 4 and 6 minutes. And it's going to follow the storyline, or I would say the lifeline of a group of people. So the trials and tribulations that they go through, both as individuals, as couples. It could be something as simple as a daily argument and how that transforms into how it's going to affect the other people in their lives. So I don't want to say it's a Days of Our Lives, mm-hmm. but it's a horror suspense version of Days of Our Lives, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely a soap opera.
Is that going to be like a YouTube web series, or is it something that you're going to?
Yes, it is. Right now, I've just signed on to direct the pilot episode, which we're just about ready to film, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. If that works out and it does get the exposure that we're hoping, I've signed on to do 8 more episodes. And then some of the talent that's coming on have already signed on to do multiple episodes besides that. So we're hoping for some longevity, because I think what you're going to see now with movie theaters, some of the movie theaters are starting to reopen in the United States due to the COVID pandemic in 2020 here. But, we'll see how fast that happens. They did a couple months ago open a couple, and they didn't do so well. So we'll see what ends up happening. If 2021 is a good gauge on getting people back to the theaters with the titles coming out, it has the best shot. If it doesn't work in 2021, I'll be surprised if theaters last any longer after that.
Yeah, I think that's really going to dictate whether or not, a timeline on another feature too.
Yeah, exactly.
So if people want to follow your progress, I mean, do you have a website, or, is there a special social media you want to send people to so they can keep up on you?
Well, we do have a website, 388studios.com. We have that website. I mean, I do Twitter personally. My name is Adam Steigert. I have Facebook. I think the three of us, myself, Chris, and Chris, they both have Facebook. YouTube is where you can see a lot of the quality of work that we're putting out. And the YouTube channel for that is just my name again. It's just Adam Steigert. They call me Indie Adam. So if you see that over the banner, then you've come to the right place. But you can see a lot of the work that we're doing throughout the years. I've been on YouTube now since 2008, I believe. So you definitely have some
multiple platforms.
Yeah, definitely
to find us.
Yeah. You can also go on iTunes, Google Play, Vimeo. I said YouTube already. What am I missing? Vudu. We're on Vudu. I mean, we're on almost every digital platform there is, depending on which film you're wanting to see.
I think our primary platform is still the good old Facebook for the most part, but we're all over the place. Like Adam said, a lot of content is coming up on YouTube. A lot of little spoilers and little behind the scenes snippets.
Clips, scenes from various films.
Definitely something to look forward to. And I'll put all of those links that you want me to in the description of the podcast. That'll make it easier for people to be able to find you. And now, are you ever open to hearing other creative projects from other people, or?
Oh yes. I everybody comes to me with a pitch. It seems like every couple of weeks I get a new pitch from a filmmaker or a writer. I don't look at scripts unless they've been copyrighted, and I don't even consider thinking about doing something unless you have a budget to come to me. So if you don't come to me with a budget or an outline of what you're thinking you can afford in the sense of bringing the project to life, I don't even look at it. I used to consider it, say, oh yeah, I'll do it on a deferment or something, but my time has become so valuable to me that I'm just not into that anymore.
Yeah, no more ideas written on a cocktail napkin, right?
No.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what I wanted to get to see if anybody had an idea, and they wanted to talk to you about making a film. What are your requirements for them before they reach out to you? And that's amazing. I'm glad that you clarified that.
It's only two things: have a budget and make sure your script is copyrighted, because I never want to be accused of stealing somebody's idea.
Right. A lot of directors like that, even in Hollywood, they refuse to read a script, because as soon as they read that script, then they make a movie 3 years later, and it's just in their head. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe they got that idea. They don't remember where they got the idea from, and then they turn around and get sued for it. So absolutely, that's not something that you want to get into. All right, so I guess that's it. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you very, very much for being here. I know we could talk about movies and films, for the rest of the night, but we are out of time. So thanks again for being here, and we'll definitely be looking forward to more films from you guys.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Right, so that'll wrap it up for this installment of Telecast PH. I've been BizDev Jeff, your host. Thank you so much for listening, and a special thank you to Adam and Kristen for taking the time to talk with us today. It was an extreme, extreme pleasure. Now, if you like this podcast, please subscribe, and if you're on the YouTube channel, please go ahead and like, subscribe, and I'd really appreciate it if you would hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload new content. And I'm always looking for great feedback, so comments are welcome. And of course, if you want to find out more about Telework PH and what we do and how we can help your business scale up quicker, all you got to do is hop on over to www.teleworkph.com or hit me up in LinkedIn. Just search BizDev Jeff Thompson or the hashtag BizDevJeff. And as the late great Dr. Wayne Dyer said, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Take care, everyone. Be safe. This is BizDev Jeff signing off.